Hello students, good morning sa inyo. We are now talking about the applied productivity tools. So ngayon pag-uusapan natin is yung mga applications na ginagamit natin for the office work at the same time sa mga school works natin, and I know na itong mga application nito ay nagagamit natin in our everyday lives. At the same time, ginagamit natin to ngayon sa school dahil gumagawa tayo ng mga PowerPoint presentation, gumagawa tayo ng mga letters, calculations, and so on. Paperwork is something that we have to deal with at least once in our lives. Lists, letters, bookkeeping, accounting, these tasks may not be considered enjoyable, but someone has to do them, and that sometimes happy to be you. Mostly talaga is nung wala pa ang panahon ng mga computer, we are dependent on the use of papers. 'Di ba? Lahat ng mga for example, when it comes to the ABM, 'di ba, yung mga bookkeepers, usually gumagawa sila ng mga journals, financial reports, calculations, but at the same time pagka gumagawa din tayo ng letter, we use typewriters or sinusulat natin siya ng kamay. Madalas 'di ba nagkakamali tayo, and then gagawa na naman tayo ng panibago. And everyday yun yung ginagawa natin. But still today ginagamit pa rin naman siya, but more on tayo sa computer or the productivity tools na mamaya we'll be discussing. But fortunately, we are really have to things manually. Ngayon, meron pa rin naman mga manual. For example, sa ABM, yung mga Fab M1, Fab M2, gumagamit pa rin naman sila ng mga paper journals, which is yung parang kulay yellow yung papel, or yung puti yung journal. So, sinusulat nila doon yung mga transactions din. At the same time, tayo naman gumagawa, may mga yellow pads pa rin tayo. Any paper, kung wala tayong computer, we usually sinusulat pa rin naman natin sa kamay natin. At the same time, kapag ka nagbibilang tayo, di ba, nilalagay natin yung sa papel. And then we calculate it manually. For decades, we have been using computers to do tasks that will take a lot longer if done by hand. Totoo naman yon, di ba, na kapag ginawa natin ito manually, it takes a long time para matapos natin. But with the use of the computer, mabilis na lang ito. At the same time, ready na siya para to execute properly. So we will be learning how to do some of these tasks using programs. That's what we call productivity tools. Okay, productivity in the sense na mas magiging magaang yung pagtatrabaho natin, the same time maging mabilis yung mga projects natin, activities natin, with just from sabihin natin 2 hours, 3 hours, it can be done by an hour or a minute. Next natin is productivity software. Ayan. So, yung productivity when it comes to the workplace or it comes to the education, yes, manually but also digitally. But also in the terms of digital, we use software or program, di ba? These are programs that are used for new form information such as text, documents, charts, graphs, tables, and presentation. So these are the most commonly used types of productivity tools. So number one is the word processor. The word processor is a program that used to create, view, edit, and print documents. Think of it as digital version of a typewriter. Kung sino man ang nakagamit na ng typewriter sa inyo ay mapalad kayo, no? Dahil syempre sa mga panahon ito, mga 2000, may mga iilan na lang ang gumagamit, but mostly mga batang 90s. Pero syempre sa mga panahon ng late millennial period sa Gen Z, hindi nyo na na-experience ang paggamit ng typewriter. So paggamit kasi ng typewriter, ito yung maingay. We usually nilalagay yung bond paper, nirorolyo siya, tapos magta-type na kami kung ano yung letter na gusto mo. Usually pagka nagkakamali pa nga, nilalagyan pa namin ng snowflake, papatuyuin pa yan, ihipan pa yan para lang mamaya ita-type mo yung letter. Pero syempre, kailangan naka-align yung lane niya, yung posisyon ng paglalagay ng letter. Kundi, mamamali ka na naman. So, then, pagka ink, dati, kasi di ba printer ginagamit natin. So, yung before, kailangan may ribbon ka. Bibili ka sa National Bookstore, yung ribbon, pag wala ng tinta yung ribbon na nilalagay doon sa typewriter, usually bibili ka para magkaroon na ulit ng pagka nagpindot ka sa typewriter, magkakaroon na rin ng pag pinindot mo yung letter na yon ay may letrang lalabas. Usually maingay ang mga typewriters at ginagamit to ng mga panahon 70s, 80s, 90s. But today, this is a digital version which is gumagamit ka na lang ng keyboard and then pag tinype mo, lumalabas na lang yung mga tapos gusto mo pang i-backspace, gusto mo pang i-highlight, gusto mo pang i-modify kung anong gusto mo mangyari doon sa gagawin mo. For example, mag-highlight ka, pwede mo change yung font size, font color or typeface. Pag typewriter kasi isa lang naman ang typeface. Pero pagka itong mga gamit na word processor, you can do what you want. Early word processor is standalone devices dedicated to the function, but the current word processor are the word processor programs running on the general purpose computer. May mga word processor before, like for the typewriters, may mga ginawa ring mga machines din that is for the purpose of word processor also. Tinatype din yung mga letters and then piniprint din siya. But now, we are now software that we're able to accommodate this program that will be more productive and more functional effective. These functions of the word processor shall fall somewhere between those of the simple text editor and fully function desktop publishing program. Ginagamit na rin siya not just to type your word but at the same time nilalagyan pa natin ng images, ng graphics, ng mga reports para at least makita natin ito yung ginawa mo, yung project mo, ito yung ginagamit natin which is the word processor. Diba? In terms of one software. These are those examples of the word processor. So we are most commonly know the Microsoft Office, diba? Microsoft Office, LibreOffice, WS Office, Google Suites. Usually yan yung mga family na mga productivity tools. But we are one by one we tackle it. Microsoft Word is the most commonly used by many people. It was started by lahat to ay by Microsoft started by the 90s. Nag-start yung mga productivity tools ng Microsoft Office. But now, because dumating na ang Windows 11, it working out for the Microsoft Office 2022. Pero for the latest of this time is the Microsoft Office 2019. So Microsoft Word, gamit na gamit niyo yan, di ba ginagawa niya sa mga project niyo. But at the same time, it's also available na rin online if you have Microsoft account. Syempre, at the same time, ginagamit na rin siya sa Android kung sa mga cellphone natin. Same as true with the Google Docs. Google Docs, most commonly siya is online. If you have Google account, you can create your document file using Google Docs. The good thing about Google Docs, if you have file, you can save. It will be saved in your Google Drive, and then you can able to share this document to everybody. But of course, you can print. Kung anong ginagawa natin sa Microsoft Word, you can do it with the Google Docs. Usually, available na rin siya sa Android phones nyo, and usually, meron na rin siya sa desktop. But it's more minimal lang ginagamit, but it's more on online. WPS. So, ito yung mga madalas nakikita natin sa mga Android phones natin kasi available nga siya. It's able to edit your file document or Word document, Word processor document. But the same time, meron na rin siya desktop. Itong mga nabanggit ko, Microsoft Word and WPS ito ay may bayad. So usually, kailangan natin yung WPS subscription, magbabayad ka ng subscription. At the same time, Microsoft Office, bibili ka ng CD or bibili ka ng package na Microsoft Office sa Microsoft website natin. Of course, it takes medyo may kamahalan ang Microsoft Office, and WPS meron din naman siyang price. But pagka nabili naman natin, mas magagamit mo siya eventually. Next naman natin is LibreOffice. This is an open source. When you say open source, this is available for everybody na pwede mo siyang i-download at the same time you can access with it. Pag sinabi kasi natin open source, libre siya. Kumbaga, it's made of mga developers then that is it can be other developers can contribute to the software or program that is existing. Usually open source. LibreOffice is an open source program or software na pwede nating i-download na kung wala kayong ma-download na Office, na WPS, and wala kayong budget for the subscription, you can use LibreOffice kasi lahat naman ng functions ng Office, ng Google Docs, WPS is available din sa LibreOffice. which is nandyan niya sa module natin. Next is a WordPad. Pag walang Word, usually WordPad, meron na yan. Madalas yan, meron naman yan sa Microsoft OS natin. At the same time, Apple Pages, or whether in Mac OS or iOS, it is available. Okay? It is the samples of the word processor na mga files natin. Let's say, next natin is spreadsheets. When you say spreadsheet, it is an application tool that store, organize, and calculate data in table. They are primarily used in record-keeping tasks in accounting. When you say spreadsheets, it's more on inputting mga data or information that will able to tabulate, calculate, and you create table, you create graphs, you create pie graphs, you create a statistical report. It can be used in the spreadsheet application. Usually, ang manual ng spreadsheet natin, di ba, yung mga journal books na nabibili sa National Bookstore, na sinusulat pa natin ng kamay, and then the same time, kailangan mag-match yung mga amount or the data that will be written or i-input natin. At with the use of the spreadsheet programs kasi, napakadali dahil i-input mo na lang, pwede ka na gumawa ng sarili mong calculation or formula, and then once you input it, it will automatically creates an output. That's the good thing about the spreadsheet application. But at the same time, you create table. Diba? You can customize it. Gusto mo pa, may design pa. That's the power of using the spreadsheet. It is developed computer as analogs of paper accounting worksheet. Ito sa mga ABS na gamit siya. Sa ICT, sa IT, hindi naman ganun siya ginagamit. But more, pagka may mga programming yan, usually meron din naman sa spreadsheet. Kasi ang spreadsheet application, hindi na lang siya about when it comes to accounting, but at the same time, meron na rin siyang injected na mga programming na, for example, when it comes to formulas, when it comes to if statements, lahat po, may injection na rin ng programming. Okay? This program operates on data entered in the cells of the table. So makikita nyo, di ba, na MS na sa spreadsheets may mga tables yan, columns and rows. Each cell will contain either numeric or text data or the results of formulas that automatically calculate and display the value based on the contents of other cells. A spreadsheet may also refer to one such electronic document. Kumbaga, yung manual laging digital. So, hindi na kayo mahirapan pagka magka-calculate, gagawa ng average, magkikwenta ng pera. Madaling-madali na with the use of the spreadsheet. O kung gagawa pa kayo ng table, kailangan maayos, and we see that the statistical data, and nandito na. Kung gusto mo ng t-test, z-test, mga mean, median, mode, lahat po nandito sa spreadsheet application. Napakadali na lang. Siyempre, kailangan mo lang i-modify yung mga, siyempre, malalagay ka ng data. But siyempre, and then after that, you put formulas and able to make it an output for that. Okay? So let's continue. Spreadsheet can adjust any stored value, observe the effects of the calculated values. This makes the spreadsheet useful for what-if analysis, since may cases be rapidly investigated without manual recalculation. Usually, ang disadvantage kasi kapag manual, possible na magkamali tayo eh. May mga digit na may kulangin or mali pa yung mga tinatawag nating pagka-calculate. But within this spreadsheet, we put it formulas or may mga preset na formula, hindi na po tayo mahihirapan. But of course, because meron pa rin interaction between humans and the computer, kapag mali din naman nilagay natin dyan sa calculation, definitely mali din yung output niya. Kaya dapat meron pa rin talaga na tamang formula for that. Okay? A modern spreadsheet software can have multiple interacting sheets, can display data in the text and numeric as in the graphical form. Sinasabi ko, pwede tayo mayroon table, di lang table, usually we graph tayo, pie graph, any kinds of graph or statistical graphical representation. But at the same time, may customization. For example, sa viewing, gusto mo i-hide tong ganitong rows, itong data. So, ito lang gusto makita. And then, gusto mo freeze pane. When you say freeze pane, nafi-freeze siya kapag ginalaw mo yung other sheets, or other cells, or other columns or rows. Definitely, hindi magko-compromise yung kung ano yung freeze mo na row or cells. Pwede naman din siyang, for example, sorting. Ayan. So, mapapadali tuloy yung sorting mo. At the same time, may filtering function din tayo. Kapag sobrang marami yung data, gusto mo i-filter lang with terms of the category or what kind of column you can be. And ito nga sinasabi ko, ang mga what if analysis, yung mga VLOOK, yung mga lookup, magagamit din natin siya para mas papadali yung representation or evaluation natin. Besides, in performing basic arithmetic and mathematical functions, usually yun yung spreadsheets. Modern spreadsheets provide built-in functions for common financial accountancy and statistical operation. So makikita nyo sa mga spreadsheet application, madali na lang para sa inyo kung ano yung kailangan ninyo, definitely kung anong formula, ipoprovide na nila para sa inyo. Of course, ilalagay mo na lang yung mga input data natin. The good thing is, mas madali siya. It's a split of second. You put your data. But at the same time, you have also as a human being, when it comes lalo na sa mga pagkadating nyo sa research, kailangan nyo pag-aralan din yung mga calculation dahil may statistics kayo, may mga discrete mathematics kayo. Hindi pwedeng makadepende lang tayo doon sa application. But at the same time, it's been help na, na mabilis yung ano natin. But at the same time, kailangan mong pag-aralan na maigi para, paano nakuha to, itong sagot na to. Okay? Calculation net present value or standard deviation, di ba? Yung mga calculus can be applied to tabular data with the pre-programmed function in the formula. So usually may preset na siya. Okay? The examples for the spreadsheet application, again, Microsoft Excel. So it was started in the 90s. Next is the Google Sheets, WPS Spreadsheets, and LibreOffice Calc. Okay? Lahat naman nito very functional and nagamit naman din namin to, yung mga application na to. It's depend on you kung saan kagamay. Siyempre, number 2, yung budget or kung wala kang makukuhang software. Number 3, kung ano yung availability eh. Number 3, kung saan ka naggamay. Diba? For example, Excel, that's most commonly used by the people. Diba? Ginagamit yan, graphical representation, programming, and lahat na. You can customize everything and then you download. Pwede na rin yan sa mobile, pwede na rin yan sa desktop. And then, the good thing, syempre, integrated with the Google Sheets. For example, you upload your Excel file to the Google Drive and then it can able to open using the Google Sheets. Hindi naman sila masaselan. So, usually, pwede pa rin ma-edit. But the same thing, the good thing about the Google Suites is when you upload to the Microsoft Office or the Google products, the productivity tools, you can modify, edit with that, and then you can share the file, of course, and then the restriction kung sino lang yung pwede maka-access doon, whether edit or view, or they can download it. You can use also WPS and LibreOffice Calc. Usually, sabi ko kanina, open source ang LibreOffice. Kung gusto nyo i-download, pwede search nyo lang sa Google LibreOffice. Next naman natin when it comes to presentation. But before that we go into the presentation, later after this presentation, we'll be talking about Microsoft Excel. So panoorin nyo mamaya the 2 video tutorial, the basic use of the Microsoft Excel. Because you are privileged to teach to you these productivity tools dahil sabi niyo sa akin, nung high school kayo, hindi kayo naturo nito. So, ngayon, you can able to use it after this class, after you able to watch this class or online class or this video, you can apply it, diba? If you have desktop or mobile. Okay, let's proceed to the presentation. The presentation that its name implies a presentation is used to design presentation in the form of slideshow. As you can see, sa mga nakikita natin, ginagawa natin sa online class, we use presentation program or presentation software that includes slideshows, presentation, it has transition, animation, with composed of graphical text and graphical images. In computing a presentation, it's also called a presentation software that is a software package to display information to form of a slideshow. Okay. Kung kanina meron tayong word processors and spreadsheets, usually sa presentation, all of these wordings, all of this written, these written forms, it can be represented by the graphical representation using the presentation program. For example, you create a proposal using a Microsoft Word, and you can convert it into a bulleted form, a short form, a presentation, a graphical images, so that many people could interact on what you are presenting. Kasi usually kapag MS Word lang, nilagay proposal, nilagay mo sa kanila yan, babasahin nila yan, nakakainip. And para mas maaliw yung mga tao, they convert it into a presentation program. We put it images, we put it little text, and then explain it more on graphical whatsoever designs para mas masarap sa mata ng mga tao, hindi sila antukin, hindi sila mabore. And it makes maengganyo pa sila na ito pala yung gusto mong ipahiwatig. Okay? It usually lalo na sa klase natin, and especially lalo na pag magka-college kayo, kapag may face-to-face na, you can use it in your research defense, PowerPoint presentation, you're during the class, for example, reporting, you can use this presentation program. It has 3 major functions. Number 1, the editor that allows text to be inserted and formatted. Kung ilang text, of course, kung marami, usually papaikliin mo, and then you're able to make it straight to the point. And next is the method for inserting manipulated graphic images immediately. Kung gusto mo, may video pa, may GIF, yung mga moving images, whatsoever, transition from one slide to another, yung mga text, yung mga images, lagyan mo na animation or effects, whatsoever. And slideshow system to display the content. I-display mo from the didi-display ko sa inyo na makita ninyo, or pwedeng if it comes to reporting in the front of the class, or kapag kami mga event using this presentation program para mas mapakita ng mas maraming tao. And ito ginagamit din sa online ngayon dahil tayo ay nasa bahay lang, 'di ba? It's more convenient na hindi na tayo nasa labas na face to face, but at the same time ito online we can present naman pala, 'di ba? With our convenience. Okay. Presentation in the mode of delivery had become pervasive in many aspects in business communication, especially in business planning. Lalo na sa mga ABM. Kapag magpe-present kayo sa mga clients ninyo, you have presentation para maengganyo sila to invest in your business. In academic conference, for example, this online class, 'di ba? Yung mga module natin we convert it into presentation to make it more attractive to you and to make it more understandable. Kasi syempre hindi naman ang lahat ng mga students mag-e-effort na magbasa yan. Gusto lang yan skimming, 'di ba? Or laktawin lang yan para sa magazine or dyaryo. They want graphical designs, 'di ba? Animation, kasi mas kumbaga batawag dito, nalilibang tayo, 'di ba, yung isip natin. The same time, the professional conference setting, for example, you are attending in a webinar, you are attending in the massive conferences, they are using presentation and able to explain it very well. Ito na lang, yung mga Google I.O., Apple exhibits, and at the same time, yung Huawei, Nokia, lahat ng mga biggest companies, 'di ba, sa mga natin, and Microsoft as well, 'di ba, they're using presentation para makita na, uy, ito na yung bagong product, lalo na pagka Apple. We are amazed by the presentation of Apple, 'di ba, because of their graphical and at the same time how they interact with the animation and to interact with the people. For example, lalabas itong product na, uy, napakaganda with becomes of video, 'di ba, presentation. Naaliw tayo, and more people that engage to buying iPhone, buying MacBook or iMac, 'di ba? At the same time, buying Huawei products or other products that is very convenient to you. Okay? In the knowledge of economy, yan, where ideas are primary work output. Kumbaga, ito yung output mo eh. Kumbaga, this is your presentation, this is your report. It should be done with the best way. Okay? It's a feature prominently in political setting, lalo na, for example, politics. Siyempre, magpe-present ka, gito. Lalo na sa government, yan, mga reports nila, yan. Where persuasion is a central determinant of the group outcome. But because of the presentation program, or the presentation software, you're going to persuade people. That's the objective, na para mas maengganyo yung mga tao. Persuasion. You interact with the people by the use of this platform. For examples, the software programs that we are being used, of course, number one is Microsoft PowerPoint. MS PowerPoint, um, ngayon may mga parallax effects na, the smooth transitions, because of Microsoft Office 2007 nung mas in-elevate pa nila until now. And mas dumadami ngayon yung mga features ng MS PowerPoint and most commonly used until now, 'di ba? Google Slides. Usually kapag mabilisan, ito madalas online mabilisan, you can preview it by the use of Google Slides. Kung naka-upload naman siya sa Google Drive. You can use also WPS presentation in LibreOffice Impress. But of course, if you are more want when it comes to design, kung gusto mo may mga malulupit na mga graphic, basta mga malulupit, you can use Prezi and Canva. Canva is kumbaga parang multi-use siya, not just in presentation but at the same time in graphics. Canva, kung meron kayong, syempre kung may budget kayo for subscription, you can use Canva. Prezi, ito yung mga papalipati kasi ibang lupalop, no, by the use of mga graphical lines, graphical images, parang minumove ka from one place to another, you can use Prezi. Nasa inyo po kasi yan kung paano nyo i-interpret yung information ninyo by the use of the presentation. Okay? Next naman natin is the database management system. Sa lahat ng CSS ngayon dito, sa ICT, sa college niyo, you will be having your database management system or DBMS kung kayo ay magko-continue ng computer course ninyo. The DBMS is a software tool for creating, editing, and managing collections of information that's called database. In the computer class, it's called data and information. When you say data, ito yung mga for example, name, address, telephone number, kumbaga kalat-kalat siya. Kumbaga marami kang nakalap na na random, kumbaga random entry, random input from the other people, 'di ba? Words man yan or images or whatsoever. When you say information, this data that you have gathered, you are already sorted, you are already modified in kumbaga in the certain way. Okay? When you say database is the storage of the information, whether data or information. You can create, you can edit, and manage it. That's the database. Okay. Saan ba itong mga database na to? Usually, databases, pwede siya sa storage devices natin. Kung simple lang naman yung system natin, it's more, kumbaga sa system. But, okay, the same way, lalo na kung malakihan, for example, we are search engine, saan ba yung database? Bakit nasa-store yung data natin? Sa Google Drive natin, sa Facebook natin, ba't tayo pwede mag-upload, hindi nawawala? Sa YouTube, nakaka-upload tayo ng videos, napapanood natin latest video ni Architect Austria or mga favorite vloggers nyo. It's not because of the database. They have sabi yung previous lesson natin, which is the supercomputers or the data centers. That's the largest databases that meron. Of course, little people lang nakaka-access doon, syempre because of the privacy. But we're pertaining to the basic databases na which is storing data, lalo na kapag lalo na sa mga ICT dito pag gumawa kayo ng system. Of course, there are databases ng mga inputs ng mga data ng mga tao. Siyempre, when it comes to this, gumawa kayo ng system, we are future developers. Siyempre, maintindihan nyo yun, yung mga SQL, yung Oracle, database that store data. No? The database management system is the software that interacts with the end users, application and database that capture and analyze the data. Itong DBMS kasi sistema na to, database. Kumbaga, we are using software that will able to manage the database. Okay? Kapag nasa IT kasi tayo, sorry for the ABM. So, pero ma-understand nyo na yung mga data nyo na hinihingi nyo, masastore doon sa database. And the technical part of the ICT or the IT part is use application that will be managed all the data that's been input, that has been saved, and then it can be retrieved. Diba? It use applications that can retrieve or create or analyze this data that has been inserted. Or, syempre, ganun. DBMS software additionally encompasses the core facility provided to administer the database. Kumbaga, the system will able to kaya madali tayong, for example, yung Facebook natin, kaya madaling makuha natin yung ito, for sinerge natin, is because it's already in the database. Okay? A DBMS associated application refers as a database system. Often the term database is also loosely referred to any of the DBMS, the database system, or an application associated with the database. Okay, so how the database management system works. So the left side that you have seen is the raw data. When it comes to the statistics, values, facts, and figures, kumbaga nandito lahat nakastore ng mga datas natin, information, regardless kung anong kind siya, anong uri siya, kung anong characteristics niya, nandyan lahat, halo-halo yan, sama-sama lahat yan. Can you imagine? You can imagine that is the storage data, or you can say the data centers that we have. For example, Google, we have data centers. Facebook have data centers. Okay, or your the company have servers that multiple storage that stores all the data from the users. Okay, what the DBMS works. DBMS will be organized when it comes to data storage, data retrieval, administration reports, queries, and data security. Kumbaga, it's pertaining to the particular characteristic. For example, data retrieval. Magsa-search tayo, ikukunin natin yung data niya. Kailangan natin malaman yung track record niya. Reports, ano ba yung mga ginawa nitong araw na to, pwedeng gawin yun. O for example, kapag ito, yung transaction ng isang person na to, ano ba yung transaction niya? So, pwede natin i-recall yun para makita natin, may output natin siya. Of course, we have data security because lalo na sa Pilipinas, we are securing, actually hindi lang naman sa Pilipinas but also the whole world, we are protecting the data privacy of each individual. Of course, syempre with DBMS, hindi tayo dapat nagbasa-basa, naglalabas ng data. We can execute data, but of course, with the authorized use, di ba? You can delete, you can you can create your data, but of course, you can modify it. Syempre. But the use of syempre data security, balik tayo sa data security. Of course, hindi tayo basa-basa dapat dahil nga may database, hindi tayo basa-basa naglalabas ng information because we have the Data Privacy Act. Okay? So siningit ko lang 'yon. So for the future, 'di ba? Na gumagawa tayo ng ganito. At the same time, paano siya lalabas sa tao? With the use of software application based on the business logic. So ito na yung when it comes to the system. For example, we have the Lazada and Shopee. This is the e-commerce platform. Siyempre may database yan. You can lalabas yung lahat ng mga products, lalabas na. It's because of the computer application. Okay? Or the system application. Kung basic lang sa atin dito sa productivity sa office, we have the basic system. Definitely with the basics, the database, the basic management system, we have the application we can able to output all those transactions kung ano mang ginagawa natin. So lahat po yun makikita po natin, okay, by the end user. Okay, what are those examples of the database management system na productivity when it comes to the office? We use Microsoft Access, Google Cloud Databases, and LibreOffice Impress. But most of the people before, may mga tutorials pa nga dati that use Microsoft Access that uses database. Okay, so palalamitin natin when it comes to technical aspect. Microsoft Access, you can store all the information that is been stored. For example, you created the system by the use of Visual Basic. You can use the injection of Microsoft Access that can able to store data using the Microsoft Access. And you can use it with the PHP or the MySQL language or Oracle database. When it comes to the web development, by the use of that, we can access with that. Okay? The clouds naman. Kasi lalo na ngayon, hindi na lang to sa computer by the servers, but at the same time, we are now in the cloud. So, Google Cloud Databases, may mga packages to na may mga cloud services sila. Okay? Next naman natin is Graphic Suite. Graphic Suite is a group of programs that used to view, manipulate, and print computer graphics. Kung kanina sinabi natin is presentation software, we can use graphical images, graphical music, videos. Ngayon naman sa graphics is we can use the programs. by the use of graphics, we create images, we can manipulate images, you can create your layouts, your banners, or video, and then later on you can put it in your presentation software. That will be able to more interact with the people by the use of this platform. The graphics in the software suit for graphics work that are distributed together. So, mas pinapadali na yung mga buhay natin and mas mabuhay pa yung ginagawa natin, lalo na when it comes to the presentation. These programs are usually able to interact with each other on the higher level that the operating system would normally allow. Kumbaga it is an extreme level of kailangan natin na extreme skills. Hindi lang tayo more on parang pagta-type lang, magka-calculate. Kasi, sooner we can have the presentation. Of course, hindi lang yung text lang, hindi lang images. But of course, if you have the high skill when it comes to graphics, you can do it, 'di ba? You can create your own style of designing, 'di ba? When it comes to the PowerPoint, kung gusto mo may animation ka, that's more effective pag-create ng videos, pag-create ng images to make it more attractive, it can more visible for the people. There's no hard fast rule regarding the program is to be included in the graphic application suite, but most will include the list of the bitmap graphics editor and the vector graphics editor. So let's say bitmap is a pixel, it is a raster graphics and the vector graphics. When you say raster graphics, is composed of the pixels that includes bitmap. Yung mga nakikita natin, yung parang nagbe-blur, yung nagsisquare-square siya. But when you say vector, it's a linear. It uses graphical geographic shapes and measurements that able kahit ano pagka nakita mo, it's still smooth and not pixelated. Okay? In addition, this suite may be contain VRML editors, animation editors, and morphing tools. Okay. So, sa mga ganito kasi, it takes extra more effort para lang gumawa ka ng isang ganitong bagay. Okay. Ngayon, pagka gumamit ka ng graphics, to make sure that you are in the good branding, the good color, the good text. Kasi it's more many factors para masabi natin maganda ang isang layout, 'di ba? That's the examples of the use of the database this is the creative suite, graphics suite, di ba? Number 1 is the Adobe CC or Adobe Creative Cloud application or Creative Cloud, that's Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Premiere Pro, After Effects. So when you see ito, most commonly Photoshop is a raster graphics software that can use for image editing, image manipulation. You can use infographics. You can create banners and presentation that will be more attractive. Illustrator is a vector graphic that can create logos, isometric designs, geometric designs, or you can use for your for example, t-shirt brandings, etc., etc. InDesign, para siyang publisher, Microsoft Publisher, na pwede you create newspapers, mga brochures, etc. When it comes to video editing, you can use Premiere Pro and After Effects. If you say Premiere Pro, para tong tinatawag natin Filmora, KineMaster, you can edit videos, simple video editing. Pero kung gusto mong panghalimaw, you can create your own animation, or your own effects, you can use After Effects. Okay? Next naman natin, Microsoft Publisher. Ayan, yung mga basic brochure, calling cards, letters, invitations. You can use Microsoft Publisher. Kung gusto mo when it comes to presentation graphic, you can use Canva and Prezi. Nasa inyo yan guys kung anong gagamitin yung application, kung saan kayo gamay, kung saan kayo hasa, 'di ba? Kasi hindi natin pwede ipagpilitin isang bagay na hindi 'di ba, na hindi pa tayo sa isang bagay na hindi pa tayo sanay. Mas maganda kasi masanay tayo, di ba? If you are, for example, gusto mo mag-transition sa isang application ng graphics, to make sure lang na it takes a lot of learning, di ba? Tutorial, na syempre hindi madali kasi yung, for example, marunong ka sa Canva, pero hindi gusto mo mag-Photoshop, parang sanay ako sa Canva kaysa mag-Photoshop. It takes a long time para mas matutuhan mo maigi. Okay pala sa Photoshop. The same time with the Canva, di ba? They have the differences, but the same time they have their similarities. Okay? Applied productivity tools. These productivity tools and others like them normally come in software bundles of Office productivity suites that we have like MS Office, LibreOffice, Google Suites, okay, and WPS. So they are more productivity softwares na meron tayo, but this is the most commonly na ginagamit ng mga tao. This idea is to make most commonly used productivity tools available to the public as a single product with uniform designs and controls so they are easier to purchase, learn, and use. You can go to their website if you want to purchase the products or you go to the store, bumili ng mga CD nito, na CD version para ma-install po. Or ngayon, may mga USB drives na lang din. But mostly today is binibili na lang siya sa store and then download it and then may mga license na siya and then boom, you install it and you can start doing it. Okay? I encourage pa rin na if of course na still we use original purchases, di ba? We discourage the piracy dahil syempre it affects the operating system. Because they come in the suite, these productivity tools can be installed at all once. Okay? Usually may mga software kasi na OEM, when you say OEM, kumbaga it is one-time installation kapag ka na-reformat or uninstall, definitely dapat sa mismong device lang yon, hindi mo pwede ilipat sa another device. Okay? By the use of productivity tools ang nabanggit ko kanina, it's up to you, di ba? And lahat naman yan magagamit. And this senior high, most of the students parang hindi marunong maggumawa ng mga productivity tools. So now, you have the opportunity para pag-aralan to na maigi dahil sa totoo lang when it comes to the college days, magagamit nyo po siya and hindi yan mawawala po. Okay? Panghabang buhay na siya at magagamit natin. And it takes a lot of time na makapag-improve ka at the same time magagamit mo siya in your ways, 'di ba? Lalo na kapag magtitesis na kayo, you use Excel, you use PowerPoint, you use Words kasi Words you can use your research chapter 1 to chapter 5. Yung yung mga calculation, use Excel. Pag magde-defense na kayo, use PowerPoint presentation. And graphics, you use one more interactive with the PowerPoint presentation. Okay? That's the use of the applied productivity tools. And the same time, pag nagtatrabaho na kayo, magagamit niya every day. Kumbaga, hindi yan po mawawala. Okay? Magagamit nyo po yan. Kaya ngayon pa lang na kayo ng mga bata pa, pag-aralan nyo maigi and more, and I believe na mas marami pa kayo matututuhan and marami pa kayong mga techniques na malalaman when it comes to productivity tools. Okay, the next lesson will be the video tutorial. We are pertaining to the Microsoft Excel, or you can use the LibreOffice. You can download it to your desktop, okay? Kung sa cellphone man kayo, you can use with that, okay? Or tablet, if encourage it. Sa mga susunod kasi, we have the PowerPoint and Word. So, for the meantime, we use the Microsoft Excel. So, please watch the video na ipinipare ko para sa inyo. But after the video presentation and of course, ito ay available sa ating Google Drive. Isasend ko yung PowerPoint sa inyo. The same time, yung YouTube na video na ito, isasend ko rin yung lecture sa inyo. Okay?
Hi everyone, my name is Kevin. Today we are going to do an intro to Microsoft Excel or a tutorial of Microsoft Excel. And now whether you're a completely new user to Excel and you've never used it before, or even if you've used Excel before and you're looking to find out about more advanced functionality of Excel, this video is for you. Now my goal is by the end of this video, you will know how to use Microsoft Excel, both the basics and some of the more advanced functionality. So if I do a good job today, you will be able to do that. If I don't, then I'll apologize in advance. Now, one of the first questions you might be wondering is, well, what is Microsoft Excel? Well, Microsoft Excel is a spreadsheet program. And with a spreadsheet program, what you can do is you could analyze data in really amazing ways. You could find insights in your data, and you could also analyze trends. With this video, I'm going to cover a whole bunch of content. If there's some content that you're particularly interested in, you could go down to the timestamps at the bottom and you could just click into the section that you care about. If you just want to watch the whole video, that'll really give you a strong foundation in Microsoft Excel. And trust me, if you watch this whole thing, you will know how to use Excel by the end of this. The first thing that we're going to start out with is how do you get Microsoft Excel? And to do that, why don't we jump on the PC and I'll show you how to do it. Here I am on my desktop and my computer came with Office pre-installed. If you already have Office pre-installed, what you can do is you could simply click on the Excel icon. Excel is the one with an X and it's a green icon. However, if you don't have Office on your machine, what you could do is open up a web browser. I'm going to click into Chrome and then navigate to the website office.com. Once you land on office.com, you'll see two different options. One is Get Office, one is Sign In. If you want Excel on your desktop, what you're going to do is you're going to click on Get Office. Excel on the desktop is the full feature-rich program. There are a few different options. You could get a subscription to Office 365. With a subscription, not only do you get Excel, but you also get a number of other apps as well. The difference between these two subscriptions, with this one, which is a little more expensive, you could share it with up to 6 people total. With the Office 365 Personal, it's limited to just one person. But once again, you get all of these apps, including Excel. If you'd rather just pay for it one time, there's also an option, Office Home and Student, which is $150, and you get Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and you just pay for it once, and then you get the software on your machine. Alternatively, what you can do is if you're not interested in paying for Office and you'd rather use it for free, what you can do is you could also use it for free online. The way to do that is on my screen here, what you're going to do is you click on Sign In and you're going to land on this sign in page. What you do then is you could sign in if you have an existing Microsoft account. If you don't have an existing Microsoft account, you could simply click on Create New and then you could create a new account. I already have an account, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and type in my account and then I'm going to sign in. And you type in your username and then you type in your password. Once you enter your password, just simply click on Sign In and then you'll land on Office.com. Within Office.com, you'll see all your different apps, and so I could click on Excel and I could just jump into a new spreadsheet, or I could go to an existing spreadsheet. Okay, so you have these two options. You could get what's called the desktop software, which is included on Windows, which I showed you before, or you could get the web software. So what is the difference? Well, in terms of kind of basic usage of Excel, both of them are pretty similar. You'll be able to do all the basic functionality, whichever one you choose. The web offering is still a lot newer, and so it doesn't have quite the same feature parity as what you'll find in the desktop version, although Microsoft is doing a really good job at adding more and more functionality. If you want to use Excel while you're offline, so let's say you're on an airplane or maybe a train or somewhere where you don't have internet connectivity, the online app of course won't work because you're not online, and so then the offline version or the desktop software is probably a good choice. So you just have to decide what are your needs and which one do you want to get. Now that we've looked at how you can get Microsoft Excel, the next thing I want to do is why don't we just jump into Excel. And for this, I'm going to be using the desktop software. I'm going to go ahead and click on Excel on my taskbar. I could also simply search for Excel, type it in. It'll show up as my best match, but I'm going to go ahead and just click on it on my taskbar. And the version that I'm using in today's video is Office 365, the version of Excel that comes with Office 365. So this is the latest and greatest that's available. When you first open Excel, you land on this screen, and this is called the home screen. And so on the left-hand side, you'll see that it's called home. What you'll see on this page is you have a blank workbook that you could jump into if you just want to start from scratch. You also have a number of templates. You have some learning templates. You have a welcome to Excel, get more out of pivot tables. If you're new to Excel, this is a very nice sheet to walk through, and it really does a good job at introducing Excel. You also have a number of templates that you could choose from, and if you want more, you could simply click on More Templates. Down below on the page, you have all of your recent Excel workbooks that you've been working on. And what you can do is if you don't see it immediately in the list, you could also search for it. So today we're going to be looking at my tutorial sheet, so I could search for tutorial, and what you'll see is it pops up with Excel tutorial. So you could also search the list. What I can also do is I could pin sheets. So here if I click on the pin icon, it'll add it to my pin tab. And then I could also see workbooks that other people have shared with me. Now what I could do is, let's say that I want to see more templates. I could also click on New, and this gives me the full comprehensive view of all the templates that I have, also categorized. And I could also click on Open if I want a more expansive recent list, or if I want to open it, say, from a OneDrive location or a SharePoint site. Or I could just browse my PC for a file. So I have lots of different options to get back to existing content. And One of the fun things is when I worked at Microsoft, I actually got to work on designing this new page. So I hope you like it. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. If you think it's good, if you think that we could improve it even more, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. What I'm going to do for today is we're going to click into this workbook called Excel Tutorial. I've included a link in the description if you want access to this sheet. And we're going to start on the first worksheet called Welcome to Kevin's Excel Tutorial. Here we are in Excel now. This is the core experience that you see when you jump into a new sheet. We're going to click through these different worksheets within this workbook. And if you'd rather jump ahead to one of the sections, feel free to just go through the timestamps that I listed down in the description, and you can jump forward to what you care about. If instead you want to follow it end to end, just keep watching. What we're going to do first is let's jump to the orientation worksheet. So I'm going to jump in here, and the first question is, well, where am I? Right now we're in a workbook, and this is the orientation worksheet. What I could do is I could click on these worksheets, and here what I could do is I could rename a worksheet, I could insert a new worksheet, I could even change the color on different worksheets. So maybe I'll make this one red. Now what is this box called right here? I have all these boxes on the sheet. We refer to one of these boxes as a cell. And how do I reference a cell? Well, so right here, right now, you have things that are called columns. So this is column A, and then this is row 6. That's how a spreadsheet is set up. You have columns, and then you have rows. And so if I want to reference an individual cell, so let's say I'm in this cell, what I would say is I'm in cell C and then 6. So you start with the column, and then you say the row. And you can see up here as well, it says that I'm in cell C6. And what you can also do is you could have a range of cells. So here I'm in cell A8 through C8. So that's how you could reference cells. And I've included this picture of Battleship because when I look at Excel and I think of cells, it very much reminds me of a game of Battleship, how you have your columns and you have your rows. It's kind of the same similar idea or similar setup. Okay, so that's kind of just the basics of Excel. What we're going to do next is we're going to click on Format. And let me zoom in a little bit here. What we have is some different ways you could format numbers. And so we're going to have some fun little questions here. So what's my annual salary? Well, what you could do is right now, when you look at this number, it's a very big number because my annual salary is very high. So how do we figure out, or how do we view this in a better way? Well, you have different formatting options. So here I could apply an accounting number format. So I'll click on that, and that turns it into a dollar value. I could also get rid of the decimals since they don't really add too much. And that is not my annual salary. I do not make that much. I wish I did, but I don't. When I scroll down the page here, how many subscribers do I get a day on YouTube? And you probably notice the theme here that these are all made up numbers. But this number is also hard to read. So instead of doing a dollar sign, what I could do is I could add commas. And so here this added a comma to it. Here, once again, I could get rid of decimals or I could add decimals. And so it just makes numbers easier to read when you apply formatting to those numbers using this formatting section right up here on the page. What you can also do is, let's say I have fractions, I could apply a fraction format. And the way to do that is I simply click on these styles up here, and as I go down, you can see all types of different formats that you could apply, but down here I could apply a fraction, and that'll say 1/2. So depending on how you want to see your number, you could format it in more friendly names. Now, another thing that you could do too is I've entered some text here, and let's say that, right now all the text is in this one cell, but what if I want it to cover multiple columns? So I'll simply highlight that first cell that the text is in, and I'll highlight all the columns I want the text to show up in. And there's this option called Merge and Center. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And what you'll notice is it simply merged all these cells together, and now it shows the text across those. What I can also do is you have other formatting options where you could wrap text. So today, this goes through multiple cells off to the right. I could click on wrap text, and what that'll do is it simply puts all the text within this one cell. So those are a few different formatting options. I could also do things like I could fill with a color, I could adjust the font color. So there are lots of different ways that I could format text and numbers within Microsoft Excel. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to jump into how to adjust the cell size. So here in my sheet, I have this table of data, and I have my columns, I have my rows. What you can do is if you click in between a row, I could expand the size of the row, or I could contract it. I could do the same with columns as well. When I click in between columns, I could expand and contract the size of the columns. But let's say that I have a column here and there's lots of empty space. I could manually pull it in and make that better, but oh, maybe I went too far and now I cut off some text. What you can do is you could simply double click on this separation. So I'm going to double click and it simply adjusts it to make sure it fits all the text nicely. I could also do the same with rows. Here I'm going to click into the row, and then there I could reduce the height. A quick little trick that you could do if you want all your data to fit perfectly is you simply click up here in the top left hand corner, and then I'm going to double click on the column, and you'll notice now that all the columns adjusted to the text size. And then I could do the same with the row and it'll adjust all the rows. So kind of a nice way to simply format your data. What I can also do is, let's say I'm working with my data and I want to insert a column. Let's say I wanted some other value in between model and color. I could simply right click up here and I could go to insert. So let's say I insert another column, and then I could go in between rows and I could do the same where I right click and then I could insert, and that'll appear right above. If I wanted to say add another vehicle, or maybe I want to add some other attribute about the vehicle. So that's how I could manipulate data on a sheet. Okay, so that's a little bit about formatting, adjusting cells, and all that. But the true power of Excel comes from using functions and formulas. So why don't we do a quick tutorial and we'll look at how you can use those. I'm going to click into this basic formula sheet, and what I want to show is, let's start off with just basic addition. So I'm going to click into this cell and I want to add 5 and 4. And now obviously I know what that is. And so a quick little trick is I could highlight those two cells, and then if you look down here in the bottom right hand corner, you'll see some information about it. So the sum is 9, I have two numbers that I've selected, and the average is 4.5. So just kind of very quick information that you can get when you highlight numbers. But now what I want to do is I want to add these, and so we're going to go through the basics of how you create a formula. And the way you always start a formula is you start with the equal sign. And then what I can do is I'll simply say, one way you could do addition is you say 5 and then plus 4. So I could do that and that'll tell me 9. But the power of Excel comes from referencing these different cells. And so I'm going to get rid of these numbers here. And what we're going to say is I'll say equals, and then I could simply click on A2. And then I could say plus A3. And so what that's going to do now is it simply adds those two cells together, and it tells me that it's 9. Now what I could also do is, instead of going through, like here, I have a few more numbers that show up, instead of going through and saying, hey, I want to take this, plus this, what I can do instead is there's another formula called sum. So I'm going to type in sum, and then I'm going to open parentheses, and now what I do is I simply highlight all the items that I want to sum, and then I close the parentheses, hit enter, and there it's added up all the values. Now what I can also do is I could also type in equals sum, and I could do that across these numbers which are horizontal. And I'll close the parentheses and hit enter, and now it added up all these numbers. Now a nice little shortcut, and this is kind of more of a pro move, what you can do is you simply press the Alt and the equals key at the same time. So I'm going to press Alt and equals, and you'll notice that it automatically sums up all those values, and I could hit enter. If you're not big into learning formulas or remembering formulas, what you can also do is up here in the right hand corner, there's something called auto sum. So if I click on that, I could simply click on sum, or I could go through and we could do average. I could go through and do average. You could also count the numbers that appear within there, and you could also do the max and the min. So there are lots of different functions you could just automatically apply. It takes some of the most common ones and presents it within this little auto sum list. What's also nice with the sum function, so I'm going to do equals sum again. What you can do is you can highlight a set of numbers, and then I'm going to enter a comma, and I can highlight another set of numbers, and I'm going to hit a comma, and then I'm going to select another number, and then close parentheses. And what that did is it added up all of these different numbers. So I'll click into the formula field, and you can see all the numbers that it added up. So pretty powerful. Now, what would addition be without subtraction? Well, here what you could do is I could say equals this cell, and then minus this cell. And there it subtracted the two. You could also multiply. If I click on this one, the asterisk is the multiply sign, and I'll click on this next cell, and that'll multiply the two. And you could also divide, where I click on 100 and then /10, and that'll divide 100 by 10, which is 10. And I showed you earlier with this auto sum, what I could do is I could click on average. That'll give me the average across those numbers. I could simply go up here and I could click on max, and that'll give me the max of all those numbers. And here I could count all the different numbers that appear within this set. So using Excel, it's very easy to use Excel. When you use functions and formulas, you could really do some nice kind of calculations on your data in the sheet. When I think of Excel, it's really like a very powerful calculator. Okay, now that we wrapped up on basic formulas, now we're going to jump into fill series, and I'll kind of walk through what I mean by this. So let's say I have this table of data. So it's a car dealership, and I want to know what my profit margin is. Well, to calculate profit margin, you want to take the price and you want to subtract the cost. So here I'm going to enter a formula again. I'm going to type in equals, and then we'll take cell E4 minus cell F4. And so this is my profit margin. Now, what I mean by fill series is, see that little plus sign? If I double click on it, it'll simply take my formula and apply it all the way down. So here, if I click into this cell and I click into the formula, you'll notice that what it's doing is it's taking this value minus this value. So it basically took my formula and applied it all the way down, which is pretty nice. Now, one of the things I might also want to do is, let's say I want to do my profit margin less Kevin's fee, because maybe I own this dealership and I want to get paid for every car that gets sold. The price minus the cost, and then here's my fee. So I'll minus my fee there. And now I could copy the formula all the way down. Now, one of the problems is when I go to the second cell, you'll see that it moved all of these down one. That's called a relative cell reference. What I want to do is I want it to keep this reference to this spot. And what I could do then is I'll go back to my original formula. You could insert a $ before the management fee, before the letter and before the number. And what that basically tells Excel is that you want to fix the position of that cell when you do your calculation. So I'm going to hit enter, and now I could apply that again. And here, if I go into the last cell, you'll see now that it locked the management fee, but the price and the cost, or the calculation for the profit margin, adjusted based on where I was in the sheet. That's referred to as a relative reference, and then I have my absolute reference there. What I can also do, just a little shortcut, if you hate entering $, you could also press the F4 key when you're hovering over this value, and that'll automatically toggle back and forth between an absolute reference. And you could also just do a $ for a row or for the column, depending on how you're filling your formula. So there it is. One of the things I can also do with this sheet, I can also transpose the data. So right now you see that the data is organized in kind of this vertical orientation where I have my column headers and then the data down below. But maybe I want to have my column headers on the side instead of above. So what I can do is I can highlight all my data. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to paste. So I'm going to go up to paste. I'm going to click there, and I'm going to go to paste special. And now I'm going to go to transpose. And so I'm going to click OK, and you'll see what happened is it transposed all my data. So now all of my columns are now rows, and all of my data now appears going this way. So it's a nice way if you want to adjust the orientation of your data. And another thing that I want to show with filling data is Excel is pretty smart when you fill data down. So here I have Q1, and maybe this is the total number of sales I sold each quarter. So if I click on Q1, and once again I'm going to click to drop that down, Excel is smart knowing that if there's a Q1, well, there are going to be 4 quarters in a year, and it automatically increments that by 1. So when you fill with Excel, it's pretty smart about how it fills. The next thing that we're going to look at is how to split data. So I'm going to click into the Split Data tab. In here, one of the things that you'll see is I have first name and then I have last name. What I would like to do is I want to separate these by first name and then last name. So what I can do, this is a really neat thing to separate data. What you can do is click on all these names, and then we're going to click on the Data tab. And within the Data tab, we are going to click on something called Text to Columns. And what we're going to say is this is delimited. So I'm going to click on Next. And the way that they're separated is there's a space in between them, but you could also do it by tab, semicolon, comma, or any other way that the data might be separated. So I'm going to click on Next then. And for the destination, what we're going to do is right now it wants to put it in A2. What I'm going to say is let's put it into B2. So basically I want the data to go into this cell, and I'm going to click on Finish, and what you'll see happened is it just separated all of my list by the space that appears, and it split them up between first name and last name. So kind of a nice way you can manipulate your data. The next thing that we're going to look at is filtering and sorting data. This is something that I really love and really helps me look at my data in better ways. I click on the filter and sort, and what I can do now is, so I have this data table of all these different cars, models, colors, mileage, price, and cost. And what I can do is I'm going to go up into the data tab up on top, and I'm going to click on this thing called filter. So we're going to apply a filter, and what happened is it added this little drop down with an arrow on top of all of the different columns. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And what you'll see I can do is I could sort now. I could sort A to Z, I could sort Z to A, I could sort by different colors if I had colors there. So let me go ahead and I'll just sort by the name. So here I sorted from A to Z, and so now it starts with Chevrolet all the way down to Toyota at the bottom. What I can also do is I could sort from largest to smallest, or smallest to largest, or largest to smallest. So here I'll see, which one cost me the most, which one cost the least. So you could sort your lists by largest to smallest. What I can also do is, let's say that I only want to see my Chevrolets in this list. That's called filtering. So what I can do is I'll click on this again, and here you'll see all the different unique items that appear within this list. And so I'm going to click on select all to deselect all of these items, and here I could click on just Chevrolet, and I'll click on OK. Now what that's done is it's filtered my list just to my Chevrolets. What I can also do is if I click back on here, I can maybe just see my Chevrolets and my Dodge, and then I'll click on OK. And once again, it filtered the list, and here I could sort it. So my Chevrolets are together and my Dodges are together. And so that's just a quick overview of how you can filter and sort your data. You could also sort up here. There are also some advanced sorts where you could sort based on one thing, and you could add another level. So let's say if they both have the same make, then you sort by model. So you could do some things like that, but you could play around with it and play, just see all the advanced power of sorting. The next thing that we're going to look at is creating tables in Microsoft Excel. Now, what's the value or benefit of a table? So I'm going to go here, and I'm back on the Home tab, and I'm going to click on Format as a Table. And we'll just go with, I'll go with the light design. And my table has headers. Okay, so I've just inserted it. So the benefit is that it's a little easier to read, where each row in the table has this color that's been applied to it, so it's easy to read across. What you can also do is, let's say that I expand. So here, if I click down here, I could expand my table by 1. And maybe I want to call this my margin column. And for the margin one, we did the formula earlier, but I'll take the price minus the cost, and I'll hit enter. What happened is I don't have to drag it down because it's a table. It knows that this formula applies to every single item in the table, so it automatically applies it to the entire table. It's kind of nice. It saves you some time if you know all the data is related. And one thing that's really cool, I didn't actually know this until recently, but something I think is cool. Up here under table design, there's an option called total rows. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And so see what happened is it added a total now. So my total of all my margins is about $12,000. If I click on that value, I get this little drop down, and I could say, well, what's my average? What's my average margin? Or what's my max margin that I have? Or I can just say, what's my sum? So with a table, you can also very easily calculate sums. The next thing that I want to show you is how to do quick analysis in Microsoft Excel. So I just clicked on quick analysis, and one of the things that we could see is, here back to my car data, I have all these different costs. But let's say I want to visualize very quickly which one is the most expensive, which one is the least expensive. What I could do is I could right click on this, and I could go down to quick analysis. And so with quick analysis, I could also click that button. So here, if I highlight the data, you'll see this quick analysis button. So I'll click on that, and I could add data bars to my data. So here I could see, the more expensive ones have the larger data bar behind. I could also apply a color scale. And so there are many different kind of quick analysis tools that I could use when I'm looking at my data, or maybe I just want to identify my top 10%. So just kind of a nice little quick way to analyze your data. The next thing I want to show is ideas, and ideas is something new in Excel. It's up here on the Home tab, and you just click on ideas. This is part of Office 365, and what it does is it'll analyze all my data that I have, and it comes up with interesting insights based on it. So here I can see by color, what is the cost? This one's interesting. Price and field. Cost appear highly correlated. So the cost and then the price of the car appear highly correlated. The black Toyotas have a noticeably higher cost. And so what it does is it goes through my data and it finds different outliers in my data. So it calls out kind of interesting insights to me. So that's kind of a fun thing to run against your data to see if there are any interesting insights that might be there. Okay, now that we've looked at ideas, we're going to go into charts, and I'm going to show you how to create basic charts in Microsoft Excel. So I have this little table here with, I have years on the left-hand side, and then I have conference attendees on the right-hand side. And so what I could do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click on Insert, and then under Insert, I'm just going to click on Recommended Charts. And what you'll see is it just gives me all these different charts that I could insert. And the first one looks pretty good. It shows me attendees on the y-axis or the vertical axis, and then it shows me the years on the x-axis or the horizontal axis. And so I'll just say OK. And this inserts a very basic chart for me based on my data that I have over here. What I can also do is I'm going to go back, and let's go back to Insert. So here I have the same data that I had above, but now we had food sales in different years. And so what I could do is I'll go back, click on Recommended Charts. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on All Charts. And I could do a combo chart where I have two pieces of data that I want to chart out. And so food sales, maybe I want to make that a secondary axis. So this is my primary one. This is my secondary one, and so my food sales are now against the secondary axis, and I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And so this is kind of a nice view where, here I could see the attendees, and then I could see the food sales against the number of attendees. So just kind of quick charts. What I like doing with charts is anytime I insert a chart, I like playing around with it. Here I could click on Change Chart Type, and I could go through and you could try different views to see kind of what type of view you like, and just kind of experiment with it, see what you like, what you don't like. It's pretty powerful in terms of what you can do. The next thing that I want to show is how to freeze a pane. And here I have, once again, I have all my card data in here, and I have a lot of data. So here I'm scrolling down. I have hundreds of rows that show up. And unfortunately, when I scroll down, I don't know what column D is or what column E is or what column F is. It would be nice to have the header stick with the data. And I can do that with something called freeze panes. So if I click on, I'm going to click on View, and then you have this option called Freeze Panes. I'm going to click on that, and what I could do is I could freeze the top row. You could also do things like freeze the top column, or you could simply choose where you want to do the split. But I'm just going to do the top row, and so I froze the top row. So you see that line there is a little darker than the other ones, and now when I scroll down, you'll see that my column header stays in place. So kind of a nice way, especially when you're looking at a large set of data, to know what that data is that you're looking at. The very last thing that I want to show is pivot tables, and I have a whole separate video on pivot tables that goes really in depth on this topic, but I wanted to do just a quick overview of what you could do with pivot tables, because this is really getting to more advanced levels of functionality in Excel. So here in Excel, I have my card data again, and what I'm going to do is go back to Insert, and now I'm going to insert a pivot table. And so it selects my data, selects the range, everything looks good, and I'll click on OK. And so what this did is it creates something called a pivot table. I see all my data here, so all the columns appear within this pivot table fields. And now I could do things like, I could drag my color down to a row, and I could drag, let's say, my total cost by color, so I could drop that in values. And so what that did then is, here are my rows. Here's my total cost, and so I could see by cost. So for all my black vehicles, this is the sum of my cost, and you could kind of do neat things where you summarize by, well, let me see the count of vehicles that I have by color. So what I wanted to do is just give a very quick preview of pivot tables. You could feel free to play around with them and kind of see what the capabilities are. I also have a few additional videos down in the description and in the comments down below with links to more in-depth overviews of what are pivot tables, how do you do conditional formatting, how do you use formulas like VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP and things like that. So there's a lot more that you could do with Excel beyond this. Well, that's the end of the Excel tutorial. What I wanted to do is just give a quick overview of kind of the core fundamental functionality of Excel, as well as give a little kind of peek at some of the more advanced functionality. I have more videos that go more in depth on that advanced functionality. For example, if you want to learn about VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP, or if you want to learn about pivot tables or conditional formatting or a lot more functions and formulas, I have videos that cover all those topics, and I've included links in the description if you want to check those out and really increase your expertise in Microsoft Excel. But with this video, this really covers most of the fundamentals on a day-to-day basis. This is most of the stuff that I use, and it really helps me use Excel in a really good way, and really helps me analyze data, identify insights, and all of that. Excel is a super powerful program. Hopefully this video helped you really kind of build your skills in Microsoft Excel. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a question in the comments. I always read all the comments that come in, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, please hit that subscribe button. That way you get a notification anytime new content like this comes out. And if there are any other questions or any other topics that you want to see me cover in future videos, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'll add it to my list of videos to create in the future. And that's all I had today. Hopefully you're well on your way to becoming an expert in Microsoft Excel, and hopefully it's going to help you either be successful in your professional life by being able to analyze data better, or maybe in your personal life if you just want to analyze different, maybe your finances, maybe you're buying a house like me, and you want to look at the data and evaluate things. All right, well, that's all I had for you today, and I'll see you next time.
In this video, we're going to talk about 10 functions that are typically used in Excel. So the first one that we're going to go over is the average function. So let's say we have a group of numbers 15, 27, 42, 93, 56, 84, 75, 33, and 49. If you want to find the average of these numbers, type in equal average parentheses and then highlight the column of data that you want to average. And so the average of these numbers is 53.125. And so that's a very simple way in which you can use the average function in Excel. Now let's say if you want to average two numbers quickly, you can type in equal average, and then let's say we want to average 100 and 200. So type in 100 comma 200 close parentheses, and you get 150. If you want to average three numbers, you can type in the three numbers. Let's say 100, 200, and 300. The average of those three numbers is 200. And so that's another way in which we can use the average function in Excel. Now, the next function that we're going to talk about is the sum function. So let's say if we want to add up some numbers. So if we wish to find the sum of the numbers in this list, we can type in equal sum parentheses and then highlight the column that you want to find the sum of. And so the sum of those numbers is 429. And just like before, if we want to, we can just find the sum of two numbers. Let's say 50 and 125. 50 plus 125 is 175. You can also type in equal 50 plus 125. And as you can see, you'll get the same answer. Now let's say if you want to find the sum of three numbers, you can type in equal sum 100, 200, 300. And that'll give you 600. Or you can write it this way, equal 100 plus 200 plus 300. And so there's different ways in which you can add up numbers using the sum function. And so that's the second function that we're going to talk about in this video. Now, the third function is going to be the sum if function. So let's compare that with the sum function. The sum function allows us to calculate the sum of a range of values. Let's say if we want to find basically the sum of all of these vehicles, we can just use the sum formula. But let's say if we want to use the sum if formula, how will that help us? Let's highlight this particular cell. So I'm going to give it a yellow color. So let's say if we want to find the sum of only the Mazda vehicles. So we don't want to find the sum of all these numbers, but just basically a selected sum. We want to find the sum of a certain element in this list. So what we need to do is type in equal sum if parentheses, and then we need to select a range. So the range will be the car type, and then comma, the criteria will be based on whatever is in this cell, cell B14, and then comma, the sum range, so these are the numbers that we wish to add. Close parentheses, enter. This should be the card type actually, instead of Mazda. Now we're going to put the word Mazda in this cell. And so notice that we get the total sum of all the Mazda vehicles. So that's 125 plus 142 plus 425. And you could check it. If you type in equal sum 125 comma 142 comma 425, it will give you 692. Now you could change it. Let's say if we want to find the sum of the Honda vehicles, it's automatically going to adjust. There's only one type of Honda vehicle in this list, so it's 174. If we want to find the sum of all the Toyota vehicles, just type it in and it automatically gives us a sum. So we have 326 for Toyota, 89, and 274. So if we type in equal 326 plus 89 plus the other one, which is 274, we get 689. So the SUMIF function helps us to find the sum of a certain element in this list, rather than the sum of all of these numbers in that list. Now let's move on to our fourth function, which is going to be the count function. So how can we use the count function? The count function allows us to count. If you read it, it says it counts the number of cells in a range that contains numbers. So we can use it to count this column. And so we have a total of 10 cells that contains numbers. So this is the first one, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, 9, 10. So there's 10 cells that contain numbers. Now, if you try to use it with a column of data that don't contain numbers, you're going to get a value of 0. So that's the fourth function, the count function. It helps you to count the number of cells with numbers. The next one is the counta function, or count a function. And so this function allows you to basically count the number of cells that are not empty. So these could be cells with a text or a number. So if we highlight these cells, we're going to get a count of 10. Now let's say if we have Mazda, if we have a number 25, let's say we have Toyota, and then 37, and then let's say at Jim, let's say Carla 12. If we try to use the count function on this, it's only going to count 2 numbers because it counts 25 and 37. It doesn't count this one, which contains letters and numbers. So that's the count function. If we use the counta function, or the count a function, it'll count every function that is not empty. And so it counts all of these functions. If we try to use it on this entire range, it still gives a 6. It doesn't count the empty cells. Now there is a function that does count the empty cells, and that is the count blank function. So notice that we have 3 empty cells, 1, 2, 3. And so that's the count blank function. So now you know how to use the count and the count a function in Excel. So number 6 will be the count if function. So the count if function is very similar to the sum if function. It allows us to count a selection in this entire column. So let's change this to count if. And so this is going to be equal count if, and then we need to select the range So this will be the range, and then the criteria, which is a cell, will be whatever is in a cell B14. So notice that it tells me how many times Toyota is listed in this list. And so we have 1, 2, 3. Now let's choose Mazda. Actually, let's choose something different. Let's choose Honda. Honda should be listed once. Now I'm going to add another Mazda to the list. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So actually, let's replace Toyota with Mazda, because the selection stops here. So I have a total of 4 Mazda car types in this list. So if I change it to Mazda, it will count 4. Now I only have 2 Toyota vehicles in this list. So if I change it to Toyota, I will get 2. And so that is the count if function. So instead of counting all the car types that we have here, which should be about 10, if we use the count function, the count if function allows us to count a certain selection in that list. It can allow us to count only the Toyota vehicles or only the Mazda vehicles. And so that's how you can use the count if function in this example. Next up, we have our next function, which is number 7, concatenate. And so let's increase the width of that column, and let's turn this back into a white cell. So how can we use the concatenate function? Well, let's say if we have a list of names, the first name in column B and the last name in column C. And let's write some names. So let's say we have the name John Smith. Let's say Kelly Williams. And then Jackie Garcia. And then we'll say Lisa Clark. And let's say David Johnson. Now let's use the concatenate function. So I'm going to type in equal concatenate, and then parentheses, text 1, and then comma, text 2, close parentheses. And so notice that it puts the information in column or in cell B2, and it connects it with the information in cell C2. And if I want to, I can extend this information. Now, instead of doing that, notice that we need a space in between. So to put that space, go ahead and type in equal concatenate again, and then we'll type in cell B2. You can just highlight it, and then comma. In quotations, type in your quotation mark, space, quotation mark, and then comma, cell C2, close parentheses. So now it's going to put a space between columns B and C. And so the concatenate function allows you to basically combine the information in 2 columns and connect it in 1 column. And you could put anything in between. So you can put a space or any other data that you want to put in between those 2 columns. So that's number 7, the concatenate function. Now, number 8, the if function. How can we use that? So let's say if we have the name of a fruit. Let's say apple, orange, lemon, or let's say banana. So equal if. So the logical test will be based on cell B3. So if B3 is, let's say, an orange, I want Excel to tell me that it's true. If it's not an orange, I want it to tell me that it's false. So here this is false because it's not an orange. And I'm going to extend it. Notice that I do get a true statement for this being orange. If I change this to orange, it becomes true. If I change that to an apple, it becomes false. And so that's one way in which you could use the if statement. You can also use it to say something other than true and false. So let's say if cell B3 is a lemon. So for words, you need to put it in quotation marks, comma. Now, instead of typing true, I want to type in yes. So I have to put quotations yes. And the next one, I can type in no, or I could say it is not a lemon. Whatever I decide to write here, it's going to replace the word false with that statement if it's not true. So here I don't have a lemon, so it is not a lemon. And now I can extend this. This one is a lemon, so I get an output of yes. Now, there's some other ways in which we can use the if function. So let's say if we have some numbers 15, 25, 50, and 84. So let's say if equals if cell B9, let's say if that is greater than 30. If that statement is true, I want Excel to basically perform a calculation rather than saying yes or no. And so that calculation will be, let's see, if it's true, I want Excel to multiply B9 by 10. If it's false, I want it to return a value of 0. And so in this case, B9 is not greater than 30. 15 is less than 30, so I got a value of 0. And now let's extend it. Here, 50 is greater than 30, so this cell, it performed the calculation that I wanted to do. That is 50 times 10, I got 500. And here, 84 is above 30, so it multiplied 84 by 10, giving me 840. Now let's do something else. So let's do if, and let's start with B9 again. So let's say B9 is less than 30. So this time, I'm going to want Excel to basically take B9 and multiply it by, or rather subtract it by 10. Let's do something different. And if it's false, I want it to divide B9 by 10. So here, we know that 15 is less than 30, so we have the true statement, and thus we're going to subtract B9 by 10, giving us 5. And this is less than 30, so we do 25 minus 10, giving us 15. Now, for this statement is false, so we get the calculation that's involved with the false statement. 50 is not less than 30, so for the false statement, I wanted cell B11 to be divided by 10. So 50 divided by 10 is 5. And the same is true for this one. 84 divided by 10 is 8.4. And so you can make Excel perform certain calculations if the information in this cell is true or false based on your parameters. So let's say if we're analyzing this cell, and let's say it has two options, yes or no. So we can write if cell B14, let's say if it's yes, so let's put that in quotations. So if we have a yes entry in cell B14, what we're going to do is we're going to take the sum of this column. And if the statement is false, meaning let's say if we don't have a yes, such as let's say if we have a no, then instead of taking the sum, I'm going to take the average of this column. So this is a yes, which means I get the sum of those numbers. So if I type in equal 15 plus 25 plus 50 plus 84, I get 174. Now if I type in no, I'm going to get the average instead. So if we type in equal average 15, 25, 50, and 84, you'll get 43.5. And so by changing yes or no, I can basically cause Excel to perform a certain calculation. The calculation if the statement is true, in this case sum, or the calculation if the statement is false, in this case average. And so that's how you can use the if function in Excel. Now, number 9 is the VLOOKUP function. So that's the next one we're going to talk about. So how can we use the VLOOKUP function? Well, first, let me fill in some information. So we're going to write the name of the individual, the email address, let's say a phone number, and also their annual revenue. I'm going to have to make this column bigger and this one smaller. So let's say once again we have John Smith, let's say Lucy Johnson, Aaron Clark, David Wilson, and Ronald James. Now let's say the email for this person, john.s@msn.com. Let's say Lucy. Well, I don't want to do that. Let's say lucyj@live.com. And then aaron.c@gmail.com. david.w@hotmail.com. And finally, ronald.j@, let's say, yahoo.com. Now let's fill in some numbers. So let's say this is 243, and then 125-7463. You could fast forward this if you like. I'll be done shortly. And let's say the revenue for John is $56,000 per year, and Lucy's revenue is $74,000 per year, and Aaron's revenue is $82,000 per year. Let's say David is $93,000 per year, and Ronald is, let's say, $47,000 per year. Now let's talk about how we can use the VLOOKUP function to look up information for these individuals. And so here we're going to have the person's name, email, phone number, and revenue. So let's say we want to look up John Smith. Now let's look up his email address using the VLOOKUP function. So if you type in equal VLOOKUP parentheses, notice that you have this lookup value, and it's going to be whatever we look up in cell C8. Next, we have the table array. So let's select this entire table, and then the column index number. So column A is not the first column, because the first column is column B, because that's the first selection in our table array. Now the email address is in column C, which is our second column that is highlighted. And the range, we have two options, true or false, but we're going to choose false for an exact match. And so we have John's email, john.s@msn.com. So if we change his name to, let's say, Lucy Johnson, automatically the email address will be updated. Now let's adjust the VLOOKUP function for the next cell. So the lookup value will still be cell C8. The table array will be the same. And the column index number will now be column 3 for the phone number. That's column D. That's the third column that is highlighted. And then let's choose false for an exact match. And so we get Lucy's number 352-452-9721. Now the last thing we're going to look up is the revenue. So our lookup value is still cell C8, same table array, column index number, the fourth column that is highlighted, and then let's choose false again. So her revenue is $74,000. And let's adjust the number format. Let's click more counted formats, and then let's put currency with 0 decimal places. So her revenue is $74,000. So if we change the name from Lucy Johnson to, let's say, Erin Clark, we're going to get all the information for Erin Clark, her email address, phone number, and her annual revenue. So that's how you can use the VLOOKUP function. The next one that we're going to talk about, number 10, is the use of a drop-down list. Now, the reason why this is useful is because let's say if you don't want to type in the information, if you want to just pull the name from a drop-down list, you can do that. And so a quick and simple way to make a drop-down list is to click Data, and then go to Data Validation, and then under a section Validation Criteria, allow a list instead of any value, and then you can type in the names that you want, or you can click in this button and then select these names, and then press Enter, OK, and now we have a drop-down list. So if I select John Smith, it automatically updates. If I select Lucy Johnson, as you can see, it updates, or David Wilson, I can get his email, phone, annual revenue, or finally Ronald James. And so that's the 10th useful feature in Excel. And so that's it for this video. Hopefully you found it to be helpful. And if you want to find more detailed videos that I have on VLOOKUP, drop-down lists, if functions, and other stuff like that, check out the description section of this video, and you can find my Excel video tutorial playlist. You can also check out my channel if you want to find help in other topics. Let's say if you're going back to school and you want to learn algebra, geometry, trig, pre-cal, calculus, chemistry, physics, I do have playlists on those topics as well. So thanks again for watching.